Hey everyone. So I'm just hopping on really quickly. I know it's Friday, but Jesus legit won't let up on this message on my heart. And so I'm just finally being obedient. And so yeah, I'm actually in Concord, Massachusetts right now. I'm preparing a message for tomorrow. And I'm actually, you guys know Dr. Julie Caton. I've talked about her a couple times here, but I'm actually traveling with her because she's doing a Restoring Identity retreat. And so she's invited me to speak tomorrow afternoon with her. So I'm so excited. I'm just preparing some messages, my message for that. But as I'm preparing, I'm looking through my notes, and Jesus is like, so you gonna talk about that with the people that I told you to talk about it with? So I'm being obedient. Okay, so I want to start off by saying this, that I don't really have all this sorted out right now, and that's why I haven't done a live video, because I don't really have like a perfectly crafted outline in my brain of how to talk about it with you guys. But I'm just going to say in like short, like this is what I have. So I want to share that with you because I feel like it could really encourage some people, because it's encouraging me. So I want to start off with a little bit of like where my husband and I are right now. So 2.5 years ago, I moved to Cleveland. I'm from Buffalo, New York, but I've been living in the city of Cleveland essentially for 2.5 years. And when Josh and I moved to Ohio City, is where we live technically, we knew we were called there. And we both felt this call to minister. We both felt this call to start a community there, and really this desire to see the kingdom of God working in that neighborhood, working in the city of Cleveland. And it's been really hard. It's been so hard. And it actually, I always talk about like how it feels like a pressure cooker, because it's just, I don't know if you've ever been in that circumstance before where you just feel like everything that possibly could happen in your life to put pressure or stress on you happens. And that's the way it's felt for the past 2 years, is just that everything that could stress us out, living situation or otherwise, has come our way, spiritual warfare. And so we both have reached this point where we're like, okay, Lord, we know we were called here, but we're feeling released. We're feeling like we're ready to go to the next thing, because we feel like our time here is done. And it's been really difficult, because I don't know if you've been in that place where you're trying to hear from the Lord and you're trying to figure out like, okay, what's next? And you're not hearing anything. And you're like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do right now. I'm just feeling stuck. I'm feeling the tension of still being in the pressure cooker, wanting to jump out, but not hearing anything. And so we've been praying about it for a really long time of like, okay, Lord, what do you want us to do? And so starting January 1st, I, like every other good Christian, right, I started in Genesis. So I was like, okay, Lord, you're going to show me something new when we go into Genesis. And so sure enough, you always come around to Noah. And so I'm reading Noah's story, and the Lord specifically points out, like highlights as I'm reading, the raven and the dove. And I didn't even know that he sent out a raven first. I don't know how I missed that detail. But he sends out a raven first, and he sends out the dove. And so I'm processing all of this, and I'm diving into commentaries, and the Lord is just unpacking Noah's situation for me and what he was really walking through. And so I want to read 2 commentaries, short little excerpts, because they just hit me so hard. So the first one is from Blue Letter Bible. I love it, the app, and it's actually the Matthew Henry one on Genesis 8. And so it says this. It's actually in like Old World language, so I'm going to try my best, okay? So it says, Noah himself, the one that had found grace in the eyes of the Lord, yet seemed to be forgotten in the ark, and perhaps began to think himself so. For we do not find that God had told him how long he should be confined, and when he should be released. Very good men have sometimes been ready to conclude themselves forgotten of God, especially when their afflictions have been unusually grievous and long. Perhaps Noah, though a great believer, yet when he found the flood continuing so long after it might reasonably be presumed to have done its work, was tempted to fear, lest he that shut him in would keep him in. Ooh, that's good. And began to expostulate. Wow, that word, we're just going to let it be, right? And then it goes on, so he literally is like unpacking Noah's situation, that he literally felt forgotten. that he's stuck. I mean, talk about agoraphobia, you know, or like, oh my gosh, when you're afraid of being enclosed in, claustrophobic, like literally confined in the ark, and had no idea when he was supposed to end that thing. God, he knew that God had called him to build the ark. He knew that God had given specific plans for preparation, but God left out that tiny detail of when is it supposed to be over, and what do I do when it's over? And okay, so the flood comes and everyone dies, and I have all these animals, and I have my family, and we go through all this chaos. We go through this huge storm, and we finally land on this rock. And when are we supposed to know when this thing is over? And reading that, it's just like it totally connected with my heart of feeling like, have you forgotten us? I don't know if anyone is there tonight where you just feel like, God, we've been here for a really long time. We've been here for a really long time. And when is it time to move on? And I just think it really hit me in a different way of like, you know, Noah, though a great believer, yet when he found the flood continuing so long after it might reasonably be presumed to have done its work, was tempted to fear lest he that shut him in would keep him in. I don't know if anyone's felt that before, but I've definitely been there, right? And then the second one that I want to read you guys is from BibleHub.com. I love this one. And it's actually talking about Genesis 8:4-12. And it says this: the ark rested upon a mountain, whither it was directed by the wise and gracious providence of God, that might rest the sooner. God has times and places of rest for his people after their tossing, and many times he provides for their seasonable and comfortable settlement without their own contrivance and quite beyond their own foresight. God had told Noah when the flood would come, yet he did not give him an account by revelation at what times and by what steps it should go away. The knowledge of the former was necessary to his preparing the ark, but the knowledge of the latter would only serve to gratify curiosity, and concealing it from him would exercise his faith and patience. So I read that, and obviously it connected to me, and I was like, yes and amen. And specifically the part where it talks about two things. The first is that God has times and places of rest for his people after their tossing. And many times he provides for their seasonable and comfortable settlement and quite beyond their own foresight. And that to me was just such confirmation in my heart. And I hope this is really one of the things that the Lord really wanted me to talk to you about tonight was that, you know, we go through these seasons of like pressure cooker seasons where it just feels like everything is falling on us. Everything is pressing on us and causing anxiety and stress. The Lord promises that after those seasons, there's rest. And after those seasons, like he literally has places and times of rest for people after their tossing, after these moments when you are stretched and you have given everything you can and you are tired and you feel exposed and you feel just like you've given everything you can. The Lord tells us that he has places where we can recover. He has places where we can just take a deep breath in the presence of God to find our rest and our rejuvenation again. And, you know, even, like I think it was like 2 days ago, I was talking to my mom about it. I was home and I was just processing everything with my mom, and I might tear up, to be honest with you. So if you're feeling any of this, if this is what you're walking through, you can leave me a comment or hearts or something like that. Let me know I'm not alone here. And so I'm talking to my mom, and I'm just trying to sort through the raven and the dove and all these meanings and everything. And I was just talking about this thing, and I'm like, you know, that God would have a place for Noah after everything he had been through. And after Noah was called into the ark, and Noah gave everything he could to obey, and he was mocked and he was ridiculed for taking that step of obedience, and he gave everything he could for obedience and to sacrifice everything. And then at the end of it, to know that God would meet him in rest, and he would provide a place for him to calm down and settle in and find himself again. And I like had this epiphany moment with my mom where I'm like, yes, that's for me too. Like that is literally for me too. That Josh and I, feeling pressed on every side, feeling tired and exhausted, that he would have a place after this whole thing. And God knows when the time and place for us to take a deep breath. And so I read that, and then the other part was that the former was necessary, preparing the ark, right? But the knowledge of the latter would only serve to gratify curiosity, and it would be an exercise of faith and patience. And so really what the Lord was saying, is that you may not know when this is going to conclude. You may not know how. In fact, Noah had to release the raven, and then he had to release the dove 3 times. And then after that point, then the Lord came to him and said, now it's time for you to be released. Then you can go out. And so I don't have all the answers of like, when is it time? When is it not time? How do we know when Jesus is telling us? Because girl, I'm trying to figure it out. But what I did realize was, first, we can follow that piece, right? It says that the dove, the second time going out, brought an olive branch back. And that was a symbolic gesture of peace. And I think that peace does come first, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's time to go forward. Sometimes it just means that we're ready and that God is doing a work and it's almost time. But then after that, then the Lord would say, okay, now it's time. And so I'm just reminded so much that in this season when we don't know, it's just an exercise of faith and patience. And that's good. And I think sometimes we just want the answer so much and we just want to get there already that we just aren't here in the middle of it, just to be. And I think we miss out on so much of the journey of our lives because we always want to get to the next thing and we just want it to be settled. And if we just wait for the next thing to be settled, then we're just going to wish away our entire lives because we don't live in the A to B. We live in the middle. We live in the process of getting there. And so this was hugely comforting to me. Seeing Noah's story and feeling what he feels and understanding that, God may call us to something and he may not tell us how it's going to end, but that's where we have to just lean on him and abide in him. And so that's really all I have for you. I hope it encouraged you. I don't have all the answers, but I just wanted to share because God was calling me to. And so I would just ask, if there's ways that God directs you and tells you, okay, this is time and you leave, this is how you know when it's time to move on. How does God direct you? Do you feel peace? Do you hear him? Does he give you words of specific images in your mind? Or how does God speak to you? I would love to hear that because I think it could really bless each other too, to learn how does God speak to us? How does God show us when it's time to move on? And I do have some ideas of my own from the passage, but I want to hear from you guys. So I hope this blessed you. And if it did, as always, you can and you can tag a friend or something like that. I'd also ask you, if you want to be notified of all of this stuff going on this page, if you would go to the following button, and then if you hit get notifications, and then there's also on there, you have to hit see first. So you have to hit those 2 things in order to see all my stuff. Otherwise, Facebook keeps us separated, and we don't want to be separated, right? Okay, so I love you guys so much. Thanks so much for spending your Friday night with me, and I hope it's blessed you. So I'll talk soon, and you'll see some pictures tomorrow of the retreat and everything. Okay, love you guys. Bye.